And I know you'll probably say it's a bad idea, but I would like to turn this into the biggest all-in-one tank in the world, maybe.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode. Today we're inside of the Orlando store. We're in front of the world famous Pentagon tank. It's been set up, or it's going into 4 years. It's been overgrown. It's going crazy. We've done some changes. It's been a year since we haven't done an update. So today I'm going to be interviewing Josh. Josh works with the team to maintain this tank. So we're going to go grab him in the farm, ask him a bunch of questions, give him guys a nice update. So let's go see what he's up to. Let's go get him. So we're here with Josh now. What's up, Josh?
What's up, man?
Hi, buddy. So it's been a year since we haven't done an update of this tank. Exactly 1 year. We're just actually, me and Josh said, you know what, people have been asking for an update on this tank. And I said, Josh, let's go see when was the last time we did an update. Sure enough, we looked on the video and we see that it was Christmas time last year.
Flyer on the doors.
And you guys can see the mangrove right here. It's a lot bigger and it's actually dressed up with Christmas lights. We're gonna turn it on in a little while so you guys can see it. We'll put it on the video for you guys. But anyhow, Josh, I want to ask you a bunch of questions on this tank. It's looking amazing. I mean, you can tell just by all the coralline growing on the sand right here on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been 4 years?
In November, we opened in 19.
Yeah.
Shortly before that, yeah.
So it's been exactly 4 years and just actually counting, just moving towards the 5th year. The growth has been phenomenal. We did some changes. Montiporas were literally overtaking the entire tank. It was bad, right? We have to remove them.
The one in the back, I had to have been half the size of a Volkswagen head.
Yeah, I mean, the problem was some of these Montiporas were growing and they were encrusting and killing all the cores. They were literally going rampant through everything. They didn't care. They're just like, I don't care who you are, I don't care if you sting. They were just growing right over them.
We had a problem with brown jelly too.
We did?
Remember that, yeah.
Yeah, that was with a couple Montes too.
I think that's the flow. You know, I think that's a result of not enough flow. When they're stacked like that and they're that big, how much flow really gets to the middle?
Yes, so since you're talking about flow, for those of you guys been following this tank for a long time, this tank, when we started it with 2 MP60s and 1 little hydro whistler in the back. And it's still the same thing 4 years later. Like Josh is mentioning now, this corals got huge. I mean, I'm not exaggerating, guys. Some of those Montiporas were, I want to say 25, 28 inches long, maybe more.
In one direction, I think the sunflower cap was bigger than that.
Bigger than that. So when these corals grow, they become basically a reef wall where they stop the flow. And a couple of them caught jelly, and like I said, a lot of them were just stinging everything. So we went ahead and removed some of them. We still have some of them in there just growing, but it's not predominantly. It seems like everything was just growing toward the tank was turning into Montiporas. Now the Aquapora's been getting really big. And we wanted to give you guys this update because we're, 3.5 months away from Reefapalooza?
Yeah.
And after that, Josh wants to do a whole reboot on the tank. And what is it that you want to do, Josh?
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, we talked about the big corals. When they get big, like this, I mean, think about how many smaller corals you can put in a space like that. So the idea is to put more corals in here yet. You know, when we have one coral and we have to break it down, it can take up an entire raceway. It can take up half a raceway, and that's kind of a pain in the butt for operation. You know what I mean? Because we got to move all this stuff out, make space for it. So it's better if we do smaller fragging sessions at a time rather than waiting until they're this big and breaking down something. So.
Yeah, because people at home, they don't know. When you break something that big, how many frags can you get? Let's say if you were to break that big giant green slimer right there, how many frags could you get?
350 frags.
If not more.
Yeah, if not more.
If no more. And just to do that, sometimes it takes a half a raceway just to put 400 or 500 frags.
And the idea is not to make a whole bunch of little teeny tiny frags, but the reality is we need these in order to continue doing business. This is a functional farm. You know, it just looks pretty.
Yeah, it is technically a farm. I mean, we get inside this tank, Joey gets inside of this tank once a week, and we're constantly fragging and trimming on this tank, correct?
Yeah, all the time. Some of the acros are like this. Some of the acros are like this. And it's actually really cool because you don't see acros kind of in an environment.
No, you
like
don't.
This.
No.
Because it's lower light. Look at this.
Yeah, by the time the Aquapora is there, it's literally 6 feet tall from the Aquapora all the way to where the light starts.
Well, taller, because I can stand underneath it and I'm 5'11".
There you go. So that goes to show. And they've been actually thriving pretty good.
Yeah, to my point that I was trying to make, the acros in here, they do better than we ever thought that they would.
And you said that you're going to be changing the flow.
Well, there's a couple of things that we said we're going to do. So we're going to break the corals down so that they're all smaller. and they're not taking up so much space. That's one. Two, we've been talking about it for a while now, probably a year and a half. Behind the mangrove, we're going to be adding a pump that allows us to put at least 1, 2, 3 main sources of flow.
Gotcha.
Okay, so it's kind of like a closed loop.
Okay.
My goal is actually to do more, being around the outside edge. So that would be 2, 3, 4, and 5 passages of flow.
And you're going to use that power head made by Pentaray?
Yeah, it's called a hydro tube.
Hydro tube.
So pretty much it's a ECM 63, which is the same pump that we use in our 1500.
Okay.
And our new 4,000 gallon tank.
Okay.
But it's not in a big basket like this. It's in a tube where it draws from the back and it shoots it out the front. So this is where it gets tricky. And I know you'll probably say it's a bad idea, but I would like to turn this into the biggest all-in-one tank in the world, maybe.
So you want to get rid of the sump?
I want to get rid of the sump.
This guy's crazy, man. So what's the reason for it?
So the sump doesn't do a lot.
Okay.
So it's underneath that cabinet.
So here's sump.
It's a massive sump. It's 130 by 42.
It's massive.
It's huge. The problem is it drains from these little tiny drains, which when you think about how much surface area there is, it's really not surface skimming a ton.
Okay.
You can't imagine that this pocket of water right here is traveling to that drain, and then this pocket of water is traveling to that drain. I just don't believe it.
Right.
I think that it's enough of an ecosystem where if we remove that sump, this tank is not going to suffer from it. We just need particulate filtration.
Yeah, no different than a Pico tank, the one I used to have in my office, the one you used to have. Oh, your tank in your office right now, which is all in one.
Yeah, and if you lift up the returns, it just kind of like trickles out of there. So how much is it really doing?
So you want to use the overflow boxes as a filter?
I do. So what we're going to do is we're going to build an overflow box that goes into the corner, and it marries with these two, and that becomes the all-in-one chamber, just like a water box or e-shop's tank or whatever you want to call it.
That's cool. Something different. Hey, biggest all-in-one tank in the world, I guess.
Yeah, and I think the message to be made there is that the system is stable enough and it's its own ecosystem. We're only looking to remove big particle stuff that's floating around in the water column.
So we're looking forward. So we're going to be doing this project after April, after Reefapalooza comes here in Orlando.
We got to get the 4,000 going.
Okay.
And then after Reefapalooza, I think that's when we kind of want to jump into that.
Okay, sounds like a great plan.
I hope so.
So a couple questions. Let me just bombard you with some of them. I still see you have a copper band. Is that keeping the adaptations away?
Look, there's two.
Two.
It's actually a pair.
Oh, we got a pair. That's beautiful.
So go back to our last update that we did of this tank. There was a whole bunch of big meat corals, you remember?
Yes.
And then we had a scoly island over here.
Yeah.
That copper band went savage on all those big corals. So we ended up having to remove not only the corals and treat them, but the copper band too.
Okay.
And Brent was able to get us a replacement, and he was like, you think 2 would be okay? And I was like, let's try it. It's a big enough tank. They beat each other up in the very beginning, and now they're cool. They actually travel together.
Oh, that's cool. Interesting. And you think they're picking up corals? Are you guys keeping an eye on them?
I'm pretty confident these guys are model citizens for now.
Okay, let's see how long that lasts.
If you watch him, he's going around the coral, but he's not getting up on the coral.
Oh, there's this little buddy coming around.
Yep.
So I got 2 favorites here. One of them is Panda. We have Panda for about 3 years. Panda's a black tank with a white spot on his belly on both sides. You guys can see him in the video. You guys can see him in the video a year ago also. And then last but not least is just the craziest clown tank that we have. And it's super friendly. It's got the most beautiful colors, doesn't bother no one. For those of you guys who know, clown tank is known for being one of the most, if not the most aggressive tank in the ocean, the Soho. Soho and a clown tank, I would say Soho might be more aggressive, I'm thinking.
Maybe a big purple would be the only close competitor, but these guys, when they fight, they're just like, they do these laps so fast.
So that they're hard to keep in the aquarium environment, and we're very happy. We've been keeping them here since day one. And the other thing, talking about fish, is super cool to mention. We put a school of 10 yellow tanks. And I'm so proud to say that all same 10 yellow tanks are in there getting along. Not a single one has a shredded fin. Not a single one has lateral lines. They all look flawless. Every once in a while, I go make sure, counting them, make sure one hasn't been kicking to the curb. Because normally, I used to keep, let's say in the 900-gallon tank in the old store, we kept a bunch, and then slowly but surely, let's say you keep 10, next thing you know, there's one that is not swimming with them, and it's like the weak one. But I think the tank here is big enough, and I think that's allowed for them to get along, kind of like what you said with the copper band, right?
Yeah, and the problem is not that they pick on the one, but there's always that one. So now you take the little runt out. Next thing you know, there's the smaller, weaker one of that next batch.
Yeah.
You know, so it kind of domino effects down to where you only have a couple left. But here, I agree. I think this is big enough, and there's enough sleeping space because they do actually pick their own sleeping spot.
It's true.
And when they graze, there's so much surface area of grazing space that they don't fight over anything. I mean, I can only imagine they kind of get bored in a small tank, right?
Yeah.
What happens when you don't take your dog out for a walk and it's a hyperactive dog?
It's true. Any other fish in here worth mentioning? I see a ruby red.
Dragonette.
Dragonette. It's one of my favorites, you know?
They actually, you know what's actually really neat about this? When we close the drawer at nighttime, they come up here in the front and they mate every single night right at the surface of the water when the lights are almost dark.
We need to make a show of that.
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
And we're going to tell Josh to bust out his phone next time he sees that. So look out for that short. We're going to put it together. Reel, whatever you want to call it, depending on what platform you are.
Here, this flamingo, he's got to be 14, 15 inches long.
How much bigger will he get, you think?
I don't know. I feel like he's almost maxed out. He hasn't really grown in a year, maybe.
Is he the biggest one we have in-house, what you say?
Yeah,
right
he's our biggest fish here. Next would be Bubbles in the 1500.
Look at his color, guys. How beautiful, man.
That cleaner ass will physically go all the way inside his operculum and inside of his gill.
For real?
Yeah. He'll come out and you'll see his head sticking out when he turns around and come back out.
It's like he goes in there. Another short, we got to make another reel, guys. Look out for that one. Then you got a clownfish. How many clowns? You don't have a lot of clowns. Can we dump some more in there?
We only put that single pair from Pro Aquatics.
Can we put some more in there?
I don't see why not. It'd be cool to pick like a big body clown, like, and it'd be mean, but something like a Clarkie complex or.
They're gonna get you when you go in there.
Okay, well.
I wish I could get those from. If you guys watched that video that was recently, I want to say maybe a month ago when I was in California, Richard McKelps, he's got the most. Do you see that video? The pair of clowns that he's got in there. I'm so jealous, man. Hey, maybe you can donate it for this tank. Maybe your tank they're getting too big for your tank, buddy. Maybe we can do a little trade for some corals or something. How cool would that be? Richard, if you're watching, I want those clowns, buddy. Also, how much is that thing grown? I mean, we don't realize it. When we see it every day, we know it's growing. But I was watching a few old videos of it, and wow.
It was this big when we got it.
And it is just huge. It's literally almost reaching the top. Do we have to trim it? What's next?
Yeah, you got to give Joey credit for that.
Yeah.
He takes his time and he makes sure that all the weak, sappy leaves on the bottom, we actually break them off to give the plant the opportunity to put that energy into the upper branches.
So if you guys want to know who Joey is Lou's brother. Lou's my business partner, Lou Shive, you guys know him. So Joey, if you guys see him at Reefapalooza, he's always the one taking care of the merchandise at the show.
And the water.
And the water. So if you see him, if you want to know about mangroves, talk to Joey. He's the one. He's his baby. He literally wipes down every single leaf every week. He's making sure that it's observant, spraying them with salt water, with fresh water.
So Julian was here.
Yes.
Reefapalooza last year, actually for your birthday party.
Gotcha.
And him and I were talking about scale. I don't know if you remember the old 4x4 Lagoon we had at the old farm.
Yeah.
We lost that mangrove.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Well, that was from scale.
Which is those bugs that come.
It's like if you think of a little tiny.
It's a powdery
you know
white.
how a stomatella snail has the shell only on the back? Well, it's a microscopic. It looks like that, but it's just a little cap that sits on the bottom of the leaf and it's white. But it's a parasite and it sucks the living life out of these plants. So Julian told us, break off the bottom branches. He goes, most of the time they're in highest concentration on the underside of the plant. So he said, just go in and break off those branches. And literally that's
where the concentration is. Julian Sprung, as you guys don't know, he gave us this. He's been aquaculturing this on his backyard for a very long time, and I think he's the mangrove master. He's the one who's got this down to a science, and we're following his footsteps. So kudos to you. Thank you for the gift, Julian. We appreciate it. We're gonna keep this thing thriving for you. So Josh, going back to, we're talking about corals earlier, which corals are growing, and here there's one thing we forgot to mention. We're producing more euphilia that we can think of right here. We're producing hammers, frog spawns, and torches non-stop. I mean, you got giant colonies that started with a single and double heads, and now you got a couple colonies with 50 and 100 heads each, if not more, right?
Yeah, everything that's like that. All those big fleshy corals like trumpets, elegants, all the euphilia. Yeah, it's growing really, really well in here. I think that this is just the environment for it. It's not really strong flow. It's a good amount of light, but it's not a ton of light.
Yeah.
And it gets fed enough. There's a calcium reactor on this, but its primary source of elk is kalkwasser.
Kalkwasser, 24/7 or just for operation water?
There's a 55-gallon brute literally on the other side of the wall.
Okay.
And a peristaltic pump that pumps it into the system 24/7.
And what brand are we using for Kalkwasser?
Calc plus 2.
Okay. And you still use some Brightwell salt for this one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They manage the nitrate with water changes.
Okay.
And obviously moderate feeding.
What are we feeding?
So our own blend of food.
Okay.
And plus we use that new product that we're trying from Chad at Reef Nutrition.
Okay.
It's pretty much their path pods,
Okay.
if you were to compare it to anything.
Any phytos, amino acids?
I don't believe that we use that anymore. I think we're getting the aminos that we need out of the feeding
Do we clean the sand?
while we walk around it. We don't go in there with a gravel vac because it's too low. So if I was to vacuum in this tank in order to siphon it,
very
the water would have to go up and then back down.
And then past the bottom area.
Yeah, and then the water level inside of the brood, as soon as it gets here, it doesn't have enough fall to create the draw.
So those are challenges of having a lagoon.
Yeah, so that's so what we do is when we're in there and we stir up all that mess, we do the water change after. It's pretty much the equivalent.
Then one thing I can't help it but just to bring up, there's still fanboys out there of highlights, which I don't blame you. If you're a fanboy of a metal highlight, more power to you, kudos to you. But there's people going around still saying that you cannot grow corals under LEDs.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry guys, I debunk you. Not true. 4 year, proof is in the pudding. You see those doors right there, open 7 days a week, 11 to 7. Soon as you walk in, not even 3 feet into it, look to your left, you will get to see this. These lights are 6-7 feet from the corals. Only 13 lights on a tank that is the size of a bedroom, guys. Okay? So can we stop this madness with the whole highlights? Again, if you like highlights, kudos to you. I love highlights. They're too hot, they're too expensive, too much electricity, changing bulbs. We're moving in technology, but just stop saying that LEDs don't work because they don't work for you. You need to reconsider the way you're reefing.
I've never had a scab on the back of my head from an LED.
Back in the day, you got burned with one, right?
Bunch of times.
Literally, you go up and you get burned with the metal highlight.
One thing that I learned from you way early on is that the lights aren't the problem. It may be how we use them, right? But you can grow corals under any light. The biggest thing is stop looking at the light because it's a problem, right? You tell me all the time, or I'll ask you a question. How come I think this is the problem with the light. And you'll say, well, how come it doesn't do that in this tank? It's the same.
Yeah.
You know, quit blaming the light first, basically.
Yeah.
Right? So at the end of the day, we grew however many corals in this tank since the beginning with Ecotech lights. 2 different generations, both the same distance off the water. Maybe we're just not applying the right amount of light to the environment that it is, right? So I think that's a really good point for anybody at home who wants to say, oh, I don't think my lights are strong enough, or I think my lights are too bright. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but quit looking at that first.
You got me thinking right there. You're saying how tall these lights are and how we've been running them here for 4 years and change.
What did you say the other day? I wish I had more growth on my acros.
Yeah.
Look at the size of these.
It's just time. Sometimes you just have to get to the process of getting to where the acros processing the energy to grow.
So there's not enough polyps in a frag. Getting their energy, their supplemental energy for food.
So they're not picking as much.
There you go. So the more polyps, the more energy they take in.
Never thought of it that way. It's true.
You know what? Well, you should go in the back. I don't even know if you know it's there. Go behind the mangrove real quick. Dude, grab that thing. It's called Herpololithia. That thing is so wild.
Oh, wow.
And it's literally growing under the mangrove, dude. Look at the size of that. How much do you think that weighs?
For reference, guys, it's heavy.
How cool is that?
Wow.
It's not something you see every day. Pretty neat, right?
Yep. Well, Josh, thank you for giving me the tour of the tank. Guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. This tank's looking amazing. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Give us a like. Post some comments below. We'll see you guys soon.